Well, hey folks, it's Simeon here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. We're here with the amazing Paige at the Snippy 24 conference near Mosca, Colorado, and the sand dunes, Great Sand Dunes, are just on the other side of us. And we heard an amazing presentation from Katie today. And this all goes back for me to a couple sentences in the Hunt for the Skinwalker book by Knapp and Keller, right?
Right.
Towards the end, if any of you folks are familiar with Hunt for the Skinwalker, Skinwalkers to the Pentagon, they reference this ranch in Elbert County and a couple other places, but there's no detail. And I was left wondering for years, what are they talking about? What else is going on out there? Because they never really filled it in. So Katie gave us a really amazing presentation on the Elbert County Rocky Mountain Ranch, which I didn't know she actually grew up on.
Yeah.
So we're with a sort of a paranormal celebrity here. I mean, she grew up around these phenomena.
Right. And what's crazy about that is I didn't know anybody investigated it. My family, my sister, nobody. So we were kind of threatened and warned never to talk about what was going on out there. It's been my mission to kind of try to sort out. This is where Linda Moulton Howe got her start as an investigative journalist out there in the 1970s, mid-70s.
That's how she started too.
Yeah, she was out there investigating all these mutilations that were occurring almost daily out there of horse, cow, sheep, even dog. I found an article about a dog. But we were told not to talk about what happened out there. And I started kind of in the paranormal world because this hitchhiker effect is very real. And then started, what were all those, anomalies in the skies and the UAPs, and learned about MUFON. Yeah, we had everything out there. We had the whole gamut, the trifecta, I guess. The Sasquatch, the UAPs, everything. And I bought a book. It was before the Skinwalker Ranch was like a TV show, people knew about it, but it wasn't as big as it is now.
Yeah.
I started reading other hot spots.
What was the book?
Hunt for the Skinwalker.
Oh, that was it.
Yeah, George Knapp and Colm Kelleher.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, because I knew the people, I know the family, I knew the whole strange dynamics of everything. Like, that's it. This has to be it. And in that book, it referenced Dr. Leo Sprinkle, PhD, who worked with contactees and was a hypnotherapist out of Laramie, Wyoming.
Yeah, University of Wyoming.
Yeah. And then John Durham, Peter Van Arsdale, both PhDs. And that was the first time I knew anybody investigated it. And they investigated it with APRO, the Aerial Phenomenon Research Organization. And now for over 12 years, I've been doing a deep dive on it. So
what was it like growing up around these phenomena? You basically had everything out there, and you showed us some examples today. Right. Strange objects, strange sounds, creatures.
Yeah.
What were you saying to each other back then, growing up in one of these so-called portal hotspots?
Yeah.
Well, it's like right next to you.
Right. As a 10-year-old girl, so like 1977, I'm aging myself here, but 1977, we had Close Encounters of the Third Kind come out, right? And they have the cattle mutilation, they're going to the Devil's Tower. I thought it was a documentary. I didn't know not everybody was living that life. So it was kind of like that. It was pretty frightening. I always slept with Big Sister. I had that hitchhiker effect even back then of the shadow beings in the room, away from the ranch house even. And so it was quite frightening, being told not to talk about what's going on.
Who told you that?
Well, we had this encounter with this disembodied electrical voice, which was in the APRA report, right?
So what Katie played for us today was a recreation of a voice that came out. Was it a loudspeaker?
Well, all the power was out in the house.
All the power was out
in the house.
Through a speaker, or it's a sound? Okay, it just came from the air.
Right.
And we were wondering to this day what that was. Is it some discarnate entity, or is it extraterrestrials, or whoever they are?
Right.
We don't know. And they told you not to talk about it in this communication.
We have allowed you to remain. What I've learned since then, though, and what I loved about your talk and the ball lightning and the research you've been doing for several years now, is that it kind of ties into some of the phenomenon out there at the ranch in looking at plasma ball technology and where they can pipe human sounding voices. And when I heard that for the first time, it sounds like a robotic kind of sound. And I'm like, that sounds very familiar to me. Were they experimenting with plasma ball laser technologies out there at the ranch, which sat vacant for 10 to 12 years before the family bought it? Could that have been what it was?
Right. So this piece of a documentary you showed us, this video segment explained this idea of coherent sound, piggybacking on lasers, coherent light. Now, this is new to me too. We know about coherent sound and people have talked about it in relation to Bigfoot's ability to project sound in one particular direction, folks. But this was sort of suggesting the military had developed this like weapon to project sound at a distance exactly where they want it to go. And that's one possible explanation for what you heard.
I think so. I think so. And not only that, but in going through Dr. Leo's files, knowing that we had soldiers from Camp Carson on there, knowing that one of the gentlemen that lived on the property was Air Force, you know, we know that Air Force was aware of the property, NORAD, and that we had the Colorado Bureau of Investigations. I mean, it was a big deal for this 3 years of just intensive, you know, what's going on. There was no fly zones put over Elbert County. Sheriffs up in, you know, we had a $10,000 Cattlemen's Association reward for, you know, trying to figure out what was going on. Then the question became, which came first, the activity or the military presence? You know, is one starting the other? And from the research I've done, it was known as the Mulligan Homestead. And if you research Dick Mulligan on the internet, he was born and raised on that property in Elbert County. And he later, in his later years, became the caretaker or worked at Winter Park Ski Resort. And there's actually a black ski run called Mulligan's Mile. And Dick Mulligan, he was an Irishman, and he was known for bold exaggeration and the gift of gab. So I'm thinking, I don't think Dick Mulligan was exaggerating. I think he was experiencing things out there in Elbert County.
People have said this is just a loquacious Irishman making up tall tales, but it actually happened.
I think it happened, and they're probably going, "Oh, that Dick, what a hoot," you know. But I think he was experiencing things which predates military presence. So, in my opinion, anyway, I think the activity has been going on way before, maybe even hundreds of years before. As we know, Elbert County is very nomadic, a lot of native tribes out in that area, and we know the Ute stories for Skinwalker and that.
There were Skinwalker stories out there too.
Exactly.
I didn't know that. So Katie is in the show Beyond Skinwalker Ranch on the History Channel. I was wondering, was it hard to go back there to start filming with them, since you had all these really strange experiences and a lot of it was kind of scary?
Right. Yeah, I had no idea how I was going to react going back for the first time. And my reaction even surprised myself. And I think it disappointed History Channel. They probably wanted, you know, more drama and tears. But what I found happened for me, I felt this sense of like, I'm not a little girl anymore. You're not going to scare me anymore. And I felt like this empowerment. Like, okay, I'm going to just face what this is. Whatever this is, I'm going to face it. You know, good, bad, or otherwise. And that's kind of has stayed with me. So yeah, that reaction kind of surprised me.
And how about your sister? She's in.
I had to drag her along a little bit. Yeah, she will be in season 3. But you know, I thought, you know, you need to face it as well. She was a little bit older, so she was in her, you know, junior, senior year of high school. And when, you know, she just had different experiences than I did. We had some shared experiences, like the big circle on the ground where we're flowing the frisbee and that. But she also had her own individual experiences. And I think in some ways it was more intense for her, and she buried it more than I did. And maybe that's why I'm able to do the deep dive and all the research that I'm doing, because it was sort of, you know, not as effective. Now, the 3 boys that live there, they've all moved out of state and they don't want anything to do with it because it really traumatized them. So there's a very human element to this. And I think that is apparent too with, you know, Snippy and the King family. And to hear the impact that event had on the whole family through the decades is something that's not talked about a lot, you know. And I think it's important that we look at the human element of this as well. Absolutely. Did any of you ever talk about this in high school? No, it wasn't. No, it didn't happen to other families around or if it did, they weren't talking about it either. Right. No. And me and my sister, we would communicate with each other in like a pig Latin and kind of, you know, we heard police were called, or we were picking up little tidbits from the adults. I think they were trying to protect, you know, oh, they're young. We don't want to scare them. We're not going to say much around the kids, but we knew, because we're experiencing things too, like. So I would, you know, I think that's important. A lot of times young kids have experiences just like we do, and they need to have an outlet for that. So I wish I would have had that then. Yeah. Got it. Well, Katie, thanks very much, and we'll see you around soon. Yeah. All right. Take care. Thanks.